And welcome back, everyone. It feels like we just left you, and it's literally a week later. A whole lot of things have happened, and thank goodness, under the auspices of the mighty Puck Radio Network, not Radio Network, Worldwide Network.
Yeah, that's right.
We're glad to be with you. We're glad to be with you.
A lot has happened, Groz. It's boy, baseball in full display. A week ago we're like, well, geez, I hope they do okay against the Yankees, and then they win 1 out of the 3, and it was actually a nice win. And then you're like, okay, they've taken their first big punch to the jaw, the Mariners have. Let's see what happens. And they go down to San Diego and just spank the Padres 3 straight. I was thinking this morning before we started talking, I know it's early. I don't know if it's still early, but there's a long way to go. We'll put it that way. I'm deriving a lot of happiness from watching this team play, and that makes me feel good because that's how it should be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Memorial Day is the first fence post, as you will, or the first post I think you look at as all right, where are we at now? And they're going to be in pretty good shape, it looks like, right now. You're right, the San Diego was, of course, rivalry weekend. I didn't need to tell you that because one thing the San Diego Padres mean to the Mariners is rivalry.
That's right.
I just feel we get so screwed on that every year. I mean, there's nothing we can do. There's no other team to play. But, geez, you watch the Yankees and the Mets and you think about, well, it'd be nice if we had something like that here, but we don't. We've got the Padres and went down to Petco. The Padres sold out every game. They're playing well. They're what I thought the Mariners should have done, blueprint wise, was spending money. They're not in a big market, but they're spending money and people are coming. I mean, it's working. Although, again, the Mariners took their measure this weekend pretty easily too. By the way, I mean they gave them a good old fashioned whooping. I think 15 runs to 3. Brian Wu is if you look at the most valuable players, certainly the most valuable pitcher on this team right now. He's just been terrific this year, just absolutely terrific. And he was great in that Sunday spot. And here they are sitting in first place without 3 starters. It's definitely fun to watch. It's a good place to be at because they should be getting better as the weeks go by.
And as guys get back, Raleigh is just, more and more looking like we are getting, something incredibly special here out of this guy. Yeah. Julio is doing his slow burn to get into a good place, and sure would be nice if he could come out of the blocks some year blazing, but hopefully he keeps improving his numbers. You think about all the injuries. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. For all the slings and arrows you can send the M's way, this organization's ability to find and develop pitchers is remarkable. And the idea that they've been able to lose 3 guys out of their rotation, I'm not going to say they haven't missed a beat, but they don't have guys rolling out there giving up 12 runs or something.
No, they don't.
They're and Wilson, again, I'm such a fan of Dan's, but having a catcher as a manager, that's worked for some guys over the years. And here's a guy who knows pitchers, kind of knows what their psyche is like. And I don't know. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the game against the White Sox later today. I'm excited to see them play, and it's I hope they're able to continue because we'd all agree. I would think even the biggest Mariner cynic would agree. It's a lot more fun when you're showing the pace instead of middle of the division or sinking to the bottom and getting hurt. Again, we keep acting like last year's team was a horrible team. They were close, which doesn't get you much, but it wasn't like they were building on something that was a disaster. And when they get when Robles, think about Robles, and he's going to be gone for a while, but this guy was a spark plug at the top of the order. Dylan Moore, Mastroboni, the year he's, give DePoto credit. We all tease him for his love of utility infielders, but he's found a couple that really work this year.
Well, it has. And, Polanco is hitting like 190 the last 2 weeks, so he's faded a little bit. Dylan Moore's not hitting as well as he was beforehand, and it's not mattering. It's not mattering. I mean, they are looking good. I think the thing is, the division's tough. I mean, the division is tough top to bottom. Even the Athletics, West Sacramento. I'm going to call them West Sacramento from now on. West Sacramento is maybe not doing maybe not going to hang in there that long, but they're doing decent. I guess the Angels are actually doing the worst, aren't they? Now that I think about it.
And it's funny.
Texas is good. Houston is good. It's going to be competitive in that division.
I think competitive is maybe, and I don't know how good the division is because we talked about, nobody's certainly run away. Everybody's pretty jumbled, pretty tight. Almost looks like the field in the Preakness at the top of the stretch. we got a long way to go before this is over. But yeah, you're right. You wouldn't really eliminate anybody yet. Maybe the A's, but you know, or maybe the Angels. But it looks like it's going to be a battle for them, and you know, just keep stacking up series wins.
Exactly. Hey, you, by the way, showed off your writing chops in fine form, in very, very fine form. It was a great piece you wrote on the story of Rick Rizzs, basically, and what he's been dealing with and living with, well, it was living with for a long time, and that was, you know, having a son who was a drug abuser. And, you know, 92 to 95, I worked for the Mariners, you know, pretty closely when I was over there at Cairo the first time, and did a lot of pre and post game. And that was the year Rick came back. And so I got a chance to see his son a lot. I think he was, I want to say he was 14 or 15 then.
That's right.
And, you know, was a little troubled, but I mean, was just rambunctious. You know, he just thought it was something like that. And, you know, I, like a lot of other people, probably surprised to read about how serious things got with him. And boy, it was a heart-wrenching story. And I'm wondering, first off, how did you hear about it and the specifics about it? And secondly, boy, Rick was really willing to be forthcoming on this thing. That surprised you a little bit.
Definitely. I saw Rick at a party last January, and I knew his son had died, and I just said to Rick, I'm just so, I know it's been a while, and I haven't seen you for a while. I'm just so sorry. I can't imagine, and all the best to you. And we talked just briefly. And I started kind of asking around. Nobody really knew.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of said, well, I know that Nick caused him some problems over the years. I don't know all the details. So finally, I kind of pieced a little of it together, and I likened it to back when you were in high school and you'd call the pretty girl that you liked and ask her on a date. You'd spend an hour or 2 hours psyching yourself up to make the call, right? Because I go, they're going to say no. And I thought, there's no way Rick is going to want to talk about this. I was 20 seconds into what I told. I said, Rick, let me talk for about 3 minutes here. I want to explain to you what I'd like to do. I got 20 seconds into that, and he cuts me off and says, Gas, I will talk to you about anything you want to know about my son, Nick.
Wow.
And from that moment on, we had conversations, and Rick's an emotional guy, and this is a heart-wrenching story, and he would break down. But and it was in the Seattle Times, for those who haven't seen it, it was in the Seattle Times Sunday magazine. They still do a great job with that Sunday magazine. Great staff there. A guy named Bill Reeder is the editor, and he was interested in the story right away. I had done something for them last fall on a guitarist in town named Tim DiGiulio, and they liked that story. This one was obviously a lot different. I was really surprised at how open and honest Rick was, and I just loved his way of looking at this. Here's a guy who has every right to be kind of bitter and kind of angry, and instead says, hey, he was sober for 9 years. It was the greatest 9 years of my life. I had such a great time with him. And Rick leans hard on his faith, which I didn't know about him. But he says, hey, Nick got baptized, and so I know I'm going to see him again. And I just, for all of us, I'll tell you what, Dave. At times, it reminded me a little bit of you. I'm so proud of you. You've handled a lot of, and it's different, but you've handled a lot of physical setbacks in your life and a lot of challenges. And you've never been a woe is me guy or a whiner, or you've just chosen to accent, what you have in your life that's good. We all have people in our lives. I got a couple of them right now, and they just give you the blues. The way I put it is like you got a bag of gold in one hand and you got a little tiny pebble of poop in the other, and you spend all day staring at the poop. Why is this poop in my hand? Rather than going, okay, the poop's in my hand, but I got this big bag of gold in the other hand. Rick is staring at his bag of gold all the time and saying, look at all the blessings I've got. I got to, and he still, whenever he talks to me, your story about my son Nick is how he always puts it. And that's what it was. I kind of rambled here a little bit, but
that's all right, man.
It was
emotional.
Yeah, it was the most powerful thing I've ever done, and I was really. I knew Rick knew what was going to be in the story, but I was very nervous as to how he'd react, because it's one thing to say, "Yeah, I'll be open with you." It's another when you see it all laid out for everybody.
Well, how did he react?
And he,
he's not called.
I said, well, it's funny. I sent him a text Saturday morning with the digital versions of it. And I said, here you go, Rick. 24 hours of radio silence. And I'm like, oh no, oh my. And he, like me, was getting overwhelmed by the reaction. And I finally exchanged a text with him. He says, "Oh, I loved it." He goes, "I really appreciate it. It's," and we both had the hope that people would react to it the way they largely have, which is, "Oh, I didn't know this about Rick. I've got this same problem in my life," or a friend of mine is going through it, or or I went through it, and that's where a lot of people, I think, because Rick is Mr. Sunshine, you'd never expect something like this could have been going on in his life, dealing with an addiction. And I think that people have taken the positive of it. If there can be positive of the way his son died and the problems in his life, but the 9 great years that Rick looks at, take those positives and accent them. And that's what
Rick's definitely. Well, it was brilliantly written, and it was a great story, and Rick is to be commended for that, because when you share like that, it does impact people, because Rick is the kind of guy now at this point where he's part of the family. For everyone in the Northwest, he's been on the radio for 30 plus years, been the Mariners' #1 guy since Dave Niehaus passed away, and so it's you can open yourself to people in that circumstance when it seems like it's a difficult topic and difficult to do, and they will surprise you with their response on a lot of occasions. And this is one of those where I kind of thought it would be a good response to. I don't know how it couldn't be, because the story is so heart-wrenching, and he's such a positive guy. So, yeah, great piece, and boy, a lot of love to Rick Rizzs. It really is, really shows the caliber of the kind of guy he is, and how he's been able to juggle these things, which would be very difficult for most people to do.
And love to everybody who helped with the story, but I want you brought up Dave Niehaus and his daughter Greta. She and I talked for quite a while about this. Greta was a little older than Nick, but they grew up together. They were obviously families were hanging out, and so Greta knew Nick pretty well. And the best quotes you get in a story are the simplest ones. And in the backstory, which is the kind of preamble to this that the Times runs on the inside of the magazine cover, I quoted Greta, and it was just it was the best quote in the story, and it was simple, where she was saying, she's glad Rick could talk about this, because it'll really resonate with people. And she says, a lot of people are going through a lot of things.
Yeah,
just a simple, basic quote that's 100% true. And it's thanks for the kind words, and all to Rizzy, too, because I putting it together. I had to do that, but it's Rick's story. It's Rick's story, and he chose to tell it and chose to open up about it, and the other people I talked to. And again, if you're going through this, you're not alone. And the happiest guy you've ever heard on the radio went through it and somehow found a way to turn it into a positive. And I hate to say, hey, you can too, but you know what? You can. You can choose the positive.
Even when lousy things like Oklahoma City getting one step closer to an NBA championship are happening, you can still look at this and feel positive about stuff.
Let's go. Well, that little jersey there over my shoulder, they may be our last hope. Although I think the Knicks are going to win the East.
I tell you what, it is. Knicks Pacers. It's been immediately you're jolted. I think.
Yeah.
Pat Riley, Reggie Miller, Spike Lee, 2 of the great series back to back. I can remember. That rivalry burned so hot during those couple of years. It was just amazing. And it'd be, we're hoping for a lot here, but it would be nice if they could kind of pick up the pieces and throw a 7-game series our way. And I think it's kind of fun because, I'm not the biggest fan of the NBA these days, but this looks brand new. You got a lot of new people playing now. You got a lot of new stories going on, and Pacers and Knicks going to be great, and I think Oklahoma City and Minnesota is going to be terrific because I think in Anthony Edwards you got the next big star of the NBA.
I think that, and I agree with you on that. I think the Pacers have their hands full, but I'll tell you, the Pacers remind me of their old ABA teams. They run and gun. I saw a fascinating stat. Some of the analytics drives me nuts, but this one is one I never remember hearing when I was covering the league. It's a really interesting stat. A guy who says the Pacers are going to beat the Knicks, and he says, here's why. He says the Knicks had that great series with Boston because they're not ready for what Indiana has. And what Indiana has is, Groz, Boston averages I think it was 245 passes a game. Indiana averages almost 350 passes a game. Over 100 more than they move the ball so fast. They've got a lot of shooters. I don't know. They were in the finals last year, in the conference finals, so it's not like they should be overwhelmed by it. I agree with you getting back to Minnesota's our next hope with Oklahoma City, and Ant-Man he's fascinating to watch. But Oklahoma City's just good all the way through the lineup, aren't they?
Yeah. They're deep. They're very talented. what it was, I always get his initials wrong. SPG, SAG, SGE.
Yeah. SGA.
MVP probably this year.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, look, I don't hate them as much as everyone else does because I don't think of the Sonics when I think of them anymore at all. And I wish they weren't thinking of the Sonics themselves. I don't want to hear about this as their third, if they make it to the finals, their third trip to the finals, because it isn't. That's bullshit. Yeah. All right, hang on. Let me calm down.
That's all right. But that's media. That's media saying that. And I mean, there was an interesting story last week about, reiterating that all the Sonic stuff still belongs to Seattle.
Right.
If the NBA ever gets off their ass and gets a team back up here, Clay Bennett has said, they can have all of that. They can have the records. Clay, for being easy to make fun of, has all along said he doesn't want to take the history from Seattle. Now he may have his hand down a little bit. Hey, I'll see y'all built $1 billion arena. Why don't you give me something for them championship banners? But
I would expect that. I would expect nothing less from that guy.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I can be petty enough that I'm certainly going to root for him to lose. But at some point you go, whatever. They're a good team. They've built a Presti. It's unbelievable how long Presti's had the job since he was up here.
Yep,
as GM, that's incredible.
He drafted pretty good up here before he got down there too. So, I mean, Westbrook is still playing, for crying out loud. So is Durant. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. He's got. And, you can look at it. It's funny to wonder, with the way fate works. Would everything be the exact same if they just stayed here? Would we have had the run with Durant and Westbrook where they almost got there and then break it up and then rebuild this? And
we would have had them. I mean,
yeah.
They would have, if they had stayed that year and then, that extra year and maybe it had broken the other way, you'd have those two guys to build with. So I would imagine you'd have been pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'll bring up the NHL just briefly, just because, the Maple Leafs, I mean, I kind of like how salty their fans are that they've just never been able to get over the hump. They're pelting ice with beer and trash and just pissed off that they've got the second longest Game 7 losing streak in NHL history.
Yeah, and they get slaughtered in these games. And, this is, by the way, you look at Canada and they talk about, the rate of exchange makes it, unfair for them to try and compete. Not with the Maple Leafs. I mean, they've got plenty of money. They've had it for years that they've spent freely. They just have spent it poorly. They've been it's like, I don't know how to compare it. Like if the Yankees never won, which is kind of becoming the case these days. But I mean, never won, would be Toronto. They haven't won anything in 50 plus years or something like that. And, to go out and go down, it's one thing to lose to the defending champs, but 6-1? Yeah. Just getting airmailed like that? I mean, just brutal.
At home, as my old friend Lefty Drizel would say, we at home. This ain't supposed to happen when you at home.
Right. So, I mean, probably looking at, I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup. I also wouldn't be surprised if Edmonton finally breaks through either. I don't think Miami's as good as they were last year. Florida's as good as they were last year. And I think Edmonton has just been waiting for it. I mean, they've just been waiting for it. We had two other things happen this weekend, one-offs. One was the Preakness, which I don't know if you saw it, was absolutely spectacular race.
I mean, one of the greatest stretch runs ever. And again, a good story needs a good storyteller. Whoever the caller, I don't know who the caller was, but he did a great job. He called it brilliantly. He kept an eye. I don't know how those guys do it, Dave. I don't know how they keep an eye on everything they got to watch. But what
really helped was the small field, which everyone was kind of criticizing here, but he was able to see everything because there weren't 20 horses coming down to the stretch. Right. And, it was incredibly fast. I mean, that horse was, he couldn't have done what he did, it looked like to me. So, I did my secretariat thing as usual, and he was 2 seconds off his time. So, 12, 15 lengths behind the time the secretariat ran. But had he not been impeded, he might have been pretty close. I mean, he was moving very, very quickly and made a great stretch run for that. And, the PGA Championship this weekend, that's actually why I'm wearing the Seabiscuit hat.
The PGA?
Yeah, for the PGA Championship, not for the Preakness, because people are trying to think of how to describe Scotty Scheffler these days. I don't know how much golf you're watching, and I got into a golf league last year, and so I've been watching a lot more than I had been in the last 10, 15 years. And just in time to see this guy Scheffler, who is the best golfer in the world, and just ask any other pro, Rory McIlroy on down, I'll tell you he's the best. And he wins the PGA Championship. It's his first major that's not a Masters, and he wouldn't be surprised me if he won the other 3 this year. And he kind of reminded me of Seabiscuit in doing it, in that, one of the things they said about Seabiscuit was he needed to give up the lead. Famously they have the scene in the movie where the jockey George Wolfe is talking to the jockey, Red Pollard, who was off the horse. He says, when he's going to the match race, the one thing is, make sure that he gets a good eye of War Admiral, because if he sees him, he'll beat him. That's what triggers him. And here's Scheffler in the PGA Championship, stumbling a little bit. And, everyone conceded, he had it. He's got a 4-shot, 5-shot lead going into the round. No one's going to catch him. And John Rahm, who's a terrific player, has won some majors himself, actually catches him on the 9th hole. It's tied up. But, we know what happens when guys blow leads like that in majors in the final round. They lose. They don't come back and win. And Scheffler made an adjustment. Really made an adjustment to his game. He talked about afterwards, which guys never do halfway through a thing like that. And he did, and he winds up winning by 6, and is just, he is the best golfer since Tiger Woods, and he might be better than Tiger Woods, which I know is blasphemy at this point. I'm curious to see how he plays out, because he doesn't quite have the personality yet that anyone's kind of figured out. He's a little bit repressed. But, he also, sometimes shows another side of him. He's obviously uber competitive. You'd have to be to be in this case. But, if you're a casual watcher of golf, this is the next great player. He's got something in common with Jack and Tiger, too. He's won 15 tournament events and 3 majors before he turned 30. Tiger did that, and Jack did that, and no one else. So that's about where he's at right now.
That surprised me, that last stat there. I saw that this morning. I was a little surprised there weren't more guys that have done it, but you have 3 guys that have won 3 majors before they're 30.
And 15 tour events.
Yeah. Scheffler, to me, and maybe it's because his amateur career was right before the pandemic, and then he starts his pro career. It feels like he's a guy who kind of came out of nowhere. Obviously, he didn't. But he's a neat story. I saw something on Twitter that made me laugh. Some guy put a thing out saying, "Look at Scotty Scheffler. Got arrested, did his time, and has come out successful. He's an example that the system works."
Well, that probably cost him the PGA Championship last year, although he played well despite it. But yeah, he is some golf's got a real special thing with him right now. They've got that lightning in a bottle thing, and we'll see how long he can keep it going. He seems like he's got the sort of stable family life that this guy might be a guy who rewrites the record books.
Yeah, and it's fun. Again, sports. I don't know why this surprises me. I've watched it my whole life. The ability of all sports to just continue to generate talent. And there's always some young hot shot coming. There's somebody better than you behind you, and it's what makes it fun, I think. And especially when you get a little wisdom on you, like you and I have, and you start looking back, and you can say, "Well, geez, I saw most of Jack's career, and I saw all of Tiger's career, and this guy has some of their characteristics."
What else has tickled your fancy over the week?
Well, believe it or not, we this happened in the last week, and we could probably dedicate a whole show to it, which we don't need to. But I've got an interesting note for you. Pete Rose now eligible for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
It's going not
along with some others.
Yeah, along with some others. I just go back and forth so much on Rose. On the one hand, it seems particularly cruel to have denied him this when he was alive, even though he's not a good guy in any way you want to look at it. But he was brilliant at baseball. Baseball's cozy relationship with gambling now kind of makes what Pete did almost seem quaint. And granted, he crossed a bigger line and I would almost think that a good reason to put him in the Hall of Fame would be to continue to show young players as they're coming up, look, even though gambling's more accessible, here's what can happen to you if you do it.
You know what they're going to say? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Take your Hall of Fame and stick it up your ass. I don't care. Just as long as I'm getting my $15 million a year, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But, look, the Hall of Fame is, on a side about putting in guys after they died. Buck O'Neill.
Right.
1 year after he dies, they put him in, after, 10 years of really helping to repopulate the sport. But anyway, they do that. You know what? I think the writer's going to be petty enough not to vote him in.
Well,
I don't know how they're going to work it, actually. But
I think he's on a committee now. He's to a point where the writers won't necessarily have a say. I guess maybe they have to put him on the committee. I saw one thing that I thought was interesting. How do you think The Athletic did a poll? 17,259 votes. Should he be in the Hall of Fame? How do you think that vote? Out of 17,000 people, pretty good representation. How do you think that fell?
I think it felt pretty dramatically for him getting in.
I would have too. 54% say no.
Wow.
I bet 46% say, yeah, he's the hit king, put him in, and 53.4%. So 53 if we're rounding the numbers accurately.
Surprising.
Yeah, it surprised me a little bit too. And Pete Rose has been the go-to topic for you and I our whole careers. You got a slow day going in sports talk radio in the 90s, bring up Pete Rose, and everybody always had an opinion about him.
Yep, I remember him in the studio saying, "I never bet on baseball." And I remember saying to him during the break, "Why don't you just admit it and just lie?"
Yeah,
like, what way to do that? And I'm thinking, well, because you did do it,
right?
But anyway, yeah. I mean, he should go in there. Baseball Hall of Fame is kind of crazy for keeping him out, I think. I think he should have been in there all along, but whatever. He gets a chance to go in now. I think there'll be more interesting cases like, I think Joe Jackson's an interesting case because he did hit 375 in the series. I mean, the series that he threw, which, some question whether he was smart enough to even throw the games, even knew how to. Hitting 375 was not the way to do it. Right. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But, Pete Rose will go in there. And, I mean, you're right. It's just to deny him the pleasure of it is excess punishment.
Yeah, it's just, but again, you spend your whole life kind of being a jerk to so many people. And,
well, I think I told you that. I don't know if it was Netflix or Prime. One of those has done a doc on Pete about 2 years ago, and it's a damning portrayal.
Yeah, it was warts and all, and there's a lot.
You watched it? Yeah, you saw it. It was not good, but again, nothing that I would have kept him out for.
Right. I mean, if you start the morality police, it's a slippery slope. Hey. Would you like our first ever on this platform listener contributed in the news article?
All right.
How about that? The people are picking up on it, and you can email an in the news article to me at mgastineau60@gmail.com if you'd like. This in the news article was sent by concerned listener Kevin Calabro.
Hey! Voice of the Blazers?
Voice of the Blazers. I think he felt our material was lacking, so he sent us something that we can use. And I think you'll like this, Groz. We're going to Portland, Oregon for the first ever match of the Portland Banger Soccer Club. The Bangers.
The Banger, you say?
The Bangers. They're a minor league soccer club. They played their first match against a Maple Valley outfit called Bigfoot Football Club. So it was the Bangers versus Bigfoot. It's the USL 2 League. The crowd, according to the story, had nothing but enthusiasm, even though Portland lost 3-0. A lot of thrill. First night, it's going to be exciting. What fans really enjoyed, and it says here, fans flocked to Saucy T sausage, the towering 11-foot-tall anthropomorphic sausage mascot, and fans reacted with a combination of both revulsion and reverence, which Calabro said would be a good title for this show, actually. Let me read you a couple of quotes, Groz. Maddie Taylor says, there was a little bit of hesitancy because it's a little bit of nightmare fuel. Veronica O said, he instilled a bit of fear in me and I didn't want to make eye contact. And then there's Claire Contreras, who's a nurse. Claire says, he looks like a big, healthy turd, to be honest.
And that's for stuff you're supposed to eat, right?
Saucy T sausage, 11-foot-tall anthropomorphic sausage mascot. That could be what Calabro does when he finally steps down from the NBA. He can get a job as Saucy T sausage.
That is classic stuff, man. That
Thanks,
is just
KC.
classic stuff. Yeah, definitely. Good to hear from you, KC.